This is RealAgriculture.com's SeedPod, the podcast that gives you insight into the Canadian seed industry. Brought to you by SGS Biovision.
Shaun Haney here with RealAgriculture.com, and it's now time for another episode of the SeedPod, which is brought to you by SGS Biovision. And it just so happens that right now we're joined by two gentlemen from SGS Biovision, Trevor Nystevold. Trevor, how's it going?
Going great, Shaun. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been, you had a good summer?
Had a great summer.
And also joining us is Jack Legg. Jack, how's it going?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, so how long have you been with SGS?
I started soil sampling for the laboratory back in 1994, so well over 20 years, currently serving as the branch manager of our location in Guelph, Ontario.
Oh, cool. Nice. And you've had a good summer as well?
Great summer. Conditions started out a little droughty, but with the recent wet weather, we're expecting some really good yields, and we're almost into yield season here now. Once the show comes, we know it's the time of year that harvest is approaching.
And getting closer to, well, it seems like a year-round thing now, but testing time.
Yes, good question. So we do see a surge of soil sampling and testing after the wheat harvest. There's a bit of a lull after that surge is done. We get into the farm show season here, and then pretty soon we'll be seeing corn silage harvested as well as white beans, and then a little later soybeans. And fall sampling is the traditional time of year to get out there and get your soil tested. So we're eagerly anticipating a busy fall season, and this weather should hold clear for us. We should have a nice long run in the fall.
And, you know, it's funny, soil health has become a really, really in vogue thing. And so in order to understand your soil health, soil testing is a huge component of that.
That's true. And I'll admit that historically and traditionally, the soil chemistry has been what we tend to look at when we test. Testing soil nutrients is fairly easy, fairly inexpensive, and fairly easy to adjust, and adjustments can occur quickly over time. Now, you're right, there is a definite focus on soil health, which also includes the physical component of the soil, as well as the biological. The physical and the biological are much more difficult to measure, a little slower to test, and much, much slower to correct or amend or see adjustments over time. So with all those things in mind, although there is much more emphasis on soil health, it's not something we're seeing a huge uptake on as far as testing. Now, with that said, we do offer packages that include the physical, the biological, and the chemical that can be a good indicator of overall soil health. And we're hoping to see a gradual uptake of that kind of testing occur.
Okay, so I know with seed testing, I know the things that we're testing for. With soil, what exactly are we testing for?
That's what the trick is in this kind of testing, is that really at this point, when it's the first time somebody's done a soil health test, it's often just a benchmark to establish where you are at. And then as you improve your management decisions and cropping practices, say cover cropping, less tillage, then over time you can compare a down the road test to your current soil health benchmark to get some measurements on how well you've improved that overall soil. Ultimately, what we're looking for is a soil that can sustain itself longer, cycle nutrients better, infiltrate water as opposed to run it off, and overall create a better medium for growing crops without as much input that's required.
So I know with seed testing, and this is my dual comparison here, if the germination, there's a difference in emergence between a germ of 99 and a germ of 70, right? Is there, and that would have some sort of correlation, I'm assuming, to yield. The more plants, the better the chance for yield. So from a soil perspective, is there correlations there and testing that's involved that correlates to yield or setting myself up for yield?
Yes, there is. On the chemistry side, definitely. Here in Ontario, we have Ontario-accredited soil test methods that are the best indication of plant-available nutrient in our soils. And we have field-calibrated nutrient recommendations. So we can tell based on a soil test what the likelihood of response to adding additional nutrient would be. said in a maybe easier way, we know if your soil test is low or high, whether it's economical to apply more nutrient or not. With the physical and with the biological, that's much more difficult to measure and to gauge. And like I said, maybe it's just the benchmark as the first starting place. But we definitely know that if you have a high bulk density compacted soil, it has a greater likelihood of holding less water, running off more water, and being more drought prone because it has less pore space, for example.
And so we're measuring nutrient level and then also things like pH, organic matter.
Correct.
Like
Yes.
Yeah. So Trevor, when you hear Jack mention some of that stuff, that speaks and I think ties very nicely into understanding the quality of the seed that you actually have that you're going to put into that soil that he's testing.
Well, that's 100% right. And one of the things that I find fascinating is with seed testing, we're essentially determining fit for use, and at its very basic level, you're either choosing whether or not to use that seed or not. With the soil, we have no choice. That is our soil.
Yeah.
Right?
Pretty much.
So basically, what we're getting involved with now is establishing a management plan that if we're deficient in certain nutrients, if we have soil characteristics that are detrimental to emergence or whatever it is, how do we change those? Because it's the same soil.
Yeah.
We're not determining fit for use. We're just putting a plan in place. And that's where, I think Jack and his team have established some really strong relationships. And just as we did with Biovision, SGS has focused on service and focused on quality. And that relationship. So it really is more building a management plan where seed testing is best management practices. There's no question about it. With soil testing and fertilizer testing and feed testing, things like that, it's building a management plan as to how can we optimize that environment so that we've got the best possible seed bed to put good quality seed in. And, we're eliminating a lot of the variables, or hoping to.
Things have changed. It's gone from, in a lot of businesses and industries changed, but we've moved from where we were maybe looking at some of the stuff like through one lens or one context, and now trying to look at it as holistically as we possibly can, look at all the issues that we're up against, all the different variables, and trying to come up with the best output that we possibly can manage for, at least with the things that are in our control. Does that make sense, Jack?
That makes perfect sense. And I think I referenced the weather during the introduction. The weather impacts so many things that we do in crop production. It influences everything from planting date to herbicide application. It can bring in disease on weather systems or even bugs. And all these things are out of our control, and all of these things can negatively impact yield. So I think what that does is it really heightens the importance of managing the things that are within our control. One of those is soil fertility. One of those is seed. So these are the things that we're hoping to help people manage. Now with soil testing, it's something that doesn't have to be done annually, which means it often gets put on the back burner. Sometimes years and years go by before a grower is sampling his soil. And we do like to bring forth that encouragement and the reminder that it's an important thing to do is to test your soil. It's probably the smallest cost to your production, the cost of a soil test. And then let us help you manage your nutrients effectively. The other thing that we're seeing is increased emphasis on environmental. So Great Lakes have algal blooms, the 4R nutrient stewardship. It's an industry-led initiative to essentially show society that we're applying nutrients in a responsible manner. And that all starts with a soil test. You can't apply at rates which are responsible until you have that initial soil test. Thanks.
Trevor Nystevold and Jack Legg, really, really appreciate it.